Well, Alec Baldwin has been charged with involuntary manslaughter, but will he go to jail? There is a trial that is scheduled, but first, there's another trial. Halyna Reed. It's going on right now. And we're going to discuss this and a whole lot more on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster. Yep, it's what some people are calling, well, they're calling it the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals interviewed and participating in this show, and do not represent those of Charlie Crimebuster nor Peacemaker Network. All individuals described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Charlie Crimebuster. Sure glad to have you on the Charlie Crime train today. Every week we get thousands of downloads. It humbles us, to be very honest with you. And we always love to hear from those that are listening. You can reach out with a shout out. You can reach me, Charlie Crimebuster, at gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. And to get a couple other housekeeping things out of the way, if you'd like to support the program, go right on over there to peacemakernetwork.com, peacemakernetwork.com, and you can become a badge, BADGE supporter. And your support not only helps this podcast, it also helps the brave men and women of law enforcement, other first responders, and the military. Read all about that over there at peacemakernetwork.com. Also, if you would like to get caught up on some other episodes of Charlie Crimebuster, well, we invite you to go to our webpage. That's charliecrimebuster.com, charliecrimebuster.com. Now, if you didn't get all of that, hang in there. No problem, no problem, no problem. All you got to do is go to the show notes. We're going to leave those 3 links for you. All you got to do is just reach that little mouse up there and go click, and you're right there. Again, thank you for being on the Charlie Crime train today. All right, now, let's talk about what we're talking about. You see, last episode in this series, we brought you up to date regarding the charges against Alec Baldwin in this terrible tragedy where a real live round was discharged out of a prop pistol on the Rust production. Unfortunately, that live round killed one person, Hutchins, and it wounded another one. Now, today, this week, there has been ongoing the trial of the Rust armorer. That's Halyna Gutierrez Reed, who faces the charges of involuntary manslaughter and also for evidence tampering. That, of course, was following the death of Halyna Hutchins. Now, that trial is officially underway. Now, opening statements in the trial, it will begin past last Thursday in Santa Fe, Mexico. And now prosecutors are hoping to finally secure a conviction. You see, some of the participants, you might say, in the Rust tragedy, some have already struck some plea bargains. And a past charge against the actor and producer Alec Baldwin? Well, at the very beginning, it was suddenly dropped. But hold on now. You see, after a test was made on the weapon, we even heard about that in the trial this past week. After some tests were made on that weapon, you see, Alec Baldwin, he said when that weapon discharged, he did not pull the trigger. That's according to reports. But those tests that was run by the FBI and others, they say he had to have pulled the trigger for the weapon to fire. And now, my friend, Baldwin, who was charged and then those charges were dropped. You see, there are a lot of people who thought that it was because of his influence and those around him that he was going to escape prosecution. They thought the prosecution was all going after Halyna, putting all the blame on her. In other words, a lot of people think she was to become the sacrificial lamb for all the mistakes and the negligence that was found on that movie set. And if you listen to the last episode in the series, you'll find there was plenty of blame to go around. Now, I'm not disputing that these charges against Reed are not justified. They are justified, in my opinion. But however, a good look at all of those participating, it looks like others also agree that there are more people involved in this because my friend Balwin, who those charges was dropped, well then, in January, he was recharged by prosecutors. They took it to a grand jury, and the grand jury said, okay, let's indict him. And his trial, by the way, is expected to take place this summer. So now let's ask ourselves the question, who is this armorer? Who is this Halyna Reed? Well, she was the armorer on the set. And while many may not know about her, in that business, plenty of people know her father. His name is Thel Reed. He was a well-known Hollywood armorer. His credits include 1997's L.A. Confidential, and of course one of my favorite older shows, 2006 Miami Vice. Now Reed, he was born and raised in Downey, California. That's according to his profile. Also, his profile says he's been known to work intimately with such actors as Brad Pitt, Val Kilmer, and he would always achieve the realistic gun handling, quote unquote. He was also a quick draw expert. That was on that 212 film, Unchained. And the Daily Beast has reported that, well, daughter has been trained by her father. Now, in a recent interview, I wouldn't say recent, really long time back, I misspoke there. Back in 1995, Reed discussed his technique for teaching actors how to use firearms. He went on to say, quote, I teach smoothness and style. He said, and then the speed comes by itself. So we know that he is a well-known armorer. But how about his daughter? How about Hannah's experience? Well, during a recent interview on Voices of the West podcast, well, Hannah herself, Halyna Gutierrez Reed, said that Russ was only the second time she had worked as a lead armorer on a film set. She said her first experience was on the set of The Old Way. That starred Nicolas Cage. It recently had wrapped up shooting. Now, Reed also told the podcast that she almost did not take that job because she hadn't been sure if she was ready for it. She goes on to say, quote, it was a really badass way to start off a really long and cool career. She said it was also my first time being head armorer as well. I almost didn't take the job because I wasn't sure I was ready. But doing it, well, it went really smoothly. Now, she also added that she had initially been very fearful of loading blanks into guns on the set. She went on to say, I think loading blanks was the scariest thing to me because I was like, I don't know anything about it. Now think about that, my friend. You would like to have that person on the set? The one who says, I don't know anything about it? Well, earlier, online publication The Wrap, it did publish a report from sources on that set of that first one that she did, The Old Way. And they said that Reed exhibited very poor gun safety on the set. The guy now, Stu, who worked as a key grip on The Old Way, he told The Wrap that, well, Reed's behavior caused the film star Nicolas Cage even to scream at her and storm off the set because she had fired a gun near the cast and crew for the second time in 3 days without warning. According to this report, Cage said, make an announcement. You just blew my freaking eardrums out. Excuse the French. Cage yelled before walking off the set. Now, two separate sources also told the Daily Beast that there had been considerably less attention given to gun safety under Reed's leadership on the film set. They went on to say there were several concerns that I brought to the production's attention. That's what one source said. That source went on to say, I've been around firearms my entire life. I know some things that were not okay, even loaded blank firearms. Now, the Daily Beast went on to recount a story from a source that said Reed had loaded a gun during the production, handed it to a child actor without properly checking the weapon. That filming was stopped by crew members who intervened, demanded that Reed properly check the firearm. That's according to published reports. She was loading the gun on the ground where there were pebbles and stuff. We didn't see her check it. We didn't know if something may have gotten into the barrel or not. That's what the report said. So now we know that her past work is not at its best. But what about her work on the set of Rust, where this terrible tragedy took place? Had she improved? Was she the person for the job? Well, we're going to tell you that in a moment, but right now it's time for what we at Charlie Crimebuster call our Crazy Crook Story. We always tell a crazy crook story to kind of lighten the load of some of the dark stuff we share. Well, here it is. Of course, it had to be, a Florida man. By the way, this week we're publishing this podcast is the week of Bike Week. A lot of crazy Florida men around here for sure. But this was a Florida man that was arrested Monday for trying to steal, get this, hang on, not just some jewelry, not just a wallet, but he tried to steal, can't make this up, he tried to steal an airplane. Tried to steal an airplane from a Fort Myers airport. And as he fled that scene, he left a gun and tactical vest behind. That was after he crashed the plane, not in the air, didn't even get that far. He crashed it on the runway and fled the scene. Now, the Lee County Sheriff's Office said that Bruce Plummer, 43 years of age, tried unsuccessfully to get into a plane at Page Field. Well, when he couldn't get into that one, he got into a second plane. He did get that plane moving, but moments later crashed it into a fence and a pole. That's what WBBH reported. Now, the gun registered to Plummer in the vest, that was found along the perimeter of the airport. And deputies later found a video of the suspect at a nearby Circle K, where he made a purchase before trying to steal the plane. Well, surveillance video from the airport itself, it did show Plummer getting out of the crashed plane, about midnight. Now, I also read about this case that there was a manual for the plane. Was sitting on the passenger seat that was open. I guess this crazy crook thought, he could just read the directions and fly the plane. Well, my friend, Plummer was arrested at his home when deputies served a search warrant. They've not said why he was stealing the plane or what he intended to do with that gun and the vest that he had with him. Now, none of that is really shown. But jail records do show that he was charged with burglary, grand theft, and possessing a bulletproof vest during certain crimes. He, by the way, is due in court about a month from now on April the 1st. So this crazy crook who's 43 years of age, Bruce Plummer, down there in Lee County, who was arrested for, of all things, trying to steal a plane that he could not only not fly, but didn't even know how to taxi it on the runway. This indeed is Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. All right, now back to our main focus. You see, Reed has pleaded not guilty to the charges, and she maintains she's not directly to blame for Hutchins' death. Now, the prosecutors, they're going to argue that Reed was to blame for live ammunition ending up in a prop gun that was discharged during rehearsal back on October the 21st, 2021, that killed Hutchins. Now, defense attorneys, they're going to argue that Baldwin really oversaw a sloppy set that led to the accidental death. And again, prosecutors, they blame Reed of sloppy conduct. In an opening statement when the trial started with the prosecutor, Jason Lewis, he accused Reed of engaging in, quote, unprofessional and sloppy conduct on the Rust set. He went on to allege that she made some decisions that very day that really did contribute to Miss Hutchins' death. And before handing the gun to Baldwin, she needed to do, quote, a much more complete check than she did to ensure that it did not contain live rounds. Now, Lewis also told the jurors that the evidence suggests that live rounds came into the set by the defendant. He actually showed a photograph in which a live round appeared to be sitting in her lap, but she had apparently, quote, failed to identify it. On the other hand, the defense attorney, Jason Miles, he blames the film's production on the chaotic set. In that opening statement, he argued that producers, including Baldwin himself, did not follow basic safety rules. And while Reed did the best job she could under very, very tough circumstances. He also argued that the film's production, that they were seeking to blame it all on Hannah because she is the easy target. Now, I also need to point out that there's a second charge in this charge that some people are a little confused for. You see, prosecutors not only charged her with involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, but they also charged her with tampering with evidence in relation to the shooting death of the movie's 2 people there. This was an amended complaint that they filed. Now, you see, according to reports, Reed transferred narcotics to another person, quote, with the intent to prevent the apprehension, prosecution, or conviction of herself. That's what the amended complaint says. And they went on to say that Reed was likely hung over when she loaded a prop gun that was used by actor Alec Baldwin. That was the one, of course, that fired a live round of ammunition during the rehearsal that wounded one and killed another. Now, witnesses told investigators that Reed was drinking heavily and smoking marijuana in the evenings during the shooting of Rust. That's what the prosecutor said. But now, hold on, Jason Bowles, that's her attorney, he had said some things pretty strong in his motion to dismiss. He actually says that he was accidentally copied on an email from the prosecution's lead investigator, Robert Schilling. And that email said that Schilling was asked to do no further work on the case. It also included a comment that Schilling had some issues with how Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office handled the investigation. Went on to say the conduct of the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office during and after their initial investigation is unprofessional to a degree that I still have no words for her. That's what he said in an email dated June the 20th. He went on to say, even some stronger words, not I or 200 more proficient investigators that I could clean up the mess that was delivered to your office 1 year since the initial incident. Inexcusable, he said. And you see that email, it kind of got tossed out, ended up to her attorney by accident. Well, Bowles, then he reached out to Schilling following the exchange. Schilling says he was unable to discuss the case because, surprise, 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 he was under a non-disclosure agreement. That's what the document says. And so now, Reed's attorneys, they're requesting all the emails between Schilling and the special prosecutors and the first judicial district attorney, saying, quote, they have lost faith that the state will voluntarily comply with its Brady obligations. You see, that's the obligation where prosecutors are required to share information with the defense. He also said it appears that one of the other DAs is still having involvement in the case, despite the order not to. You see, my friend, it looks like that this investigation has a whole lot of problems. Someone went on to say it's shocking that after 20 months of investigation, that the special prosecutor now throws in a completely new charge against Reed, with no prior notice, no witness statements, no lab reports, no evidence to support it. It seems like the defense attorney's pretty upset that they threw that new charge of tampering in on his client. He went on to say this comes on the heels of the state letting its lead investigator go, and the investigator raising serious concerns about the investigation in an email. He went on to say it stinks to high heaven. It's retaliatory, vindictive. Now remember, around all that time, involuntary manslaughter charges earlier was actually dropped against Baldwin, dismissed in April due to new facts. They explained at that time they could not proceed under the current time constraints and fact and evidence turned over by law enforcement in its existing form. Well, now, of course, now we know that he has been indicted. But what about you? Do you think that something's going on there? Do you think at first they were just going to kind of skirt around everybody else's responsibility in this terrible tragedy? Were they all just going to put it all on this one young lady? And like I told you last week, she was asked to do 2 positions, not 1. She was also to be in charge of the props as well as the armorer. Usually there's 2 different people doing those 2 things. So here's an inexperienced person placed in this particular important role. She's given 2 jobs instead of 1. You see, as I said during the last episode, they're all trying to save money. They're all trying to pitch every dollar that they can, save all the money they can so that it'll mean more profit down the way. So, is it really fair to put all this on this young 24-year-old armor? Did she make mistakes? Obviously. Terrible, tragic mistakes. But how about those people that hired her? Did they vet her? How about those people that just wanted to get by as cheap as they possibly can? Is that not a very, very real concern? And was that not a very real contributing cause to the death of this wonderful young lady who lost her life on that set? What do you think about that? Well, we're going to talk just a little more as we wrap it up, but before we do, we always take time to give you what we call an alert. We always try to teach you things to keep you safe. And we've been talking about how a lot of people out there are out to get you. We call them scam alerts. And right now, it's time for us to take just a short moment to hear from our producer, James Buckland, in today's Scam Alert.
Thank you, Charlie Crimebuster. This week, we are going to inform you about an IRS scam that is becoming popular as we near tax time coming in April. Suppose a caller claims that they are an IRS agent. They contact you to tell you that you owe back taxes and must pay immediately. If you refuse, they say they will place a lien on your property, seize your bank account, or have the police come and take you to jail. There are variations of this scam, but almost always you'll be asked to pay immediately by way of a wire transfer or perhaps gift cards. They are even willing to stay on the phone with you throughout the entire payment process, including while you're driving to the store or to the bank. They may also ask for your personal information to confirm your innocence or to receive a tax refund. Do not fall for this, because most likely you are not communicating with a government agent. And as a side note, IRS agents know who they are calling and your personal and private information, so they don't need to ask. If you think you really owe back taxes, go to the official IRS website, that's irs.gov, and find the IRS phone number. Call the IRS to contact and confirm the information provided by the prior caller. If you do owe taxes, then most likely you've received letters from the IRS already. Also, the IRS doesn't immediately send you to jail. There's a legal process that must take place where you would have been made well aware of this prior to any criminal indictment. Again, if you are uncertain of the claims against you, contact the IRS at irs.gov. If you're an individual, you can call the IRS 800-829-1040. If you're a business, 800-829-4933. And if you're a nonprofit, 877-829-5500. At Charlie Crimebuster, we strive to keep you safe.
Now back to our main focus. We're talking about the trial that's already in the process now regarding the armorer there on that set, Miss Reed. And we've been talking about the fact that it looks like that the people at the very beginning were trying to put all of the blame on this young lady. Now, for sure, she's the one on trial at this particular time. It's not Baldwin that's on trial. However, there are some things that are coming out in this trial that I believe has some very serious consequences for Baldwin. I think one of the main things that has come to my attention in looking at this trial is the fact that Baldwin made a statement, and he probably maybe wishes he did not make this statement now, I don't know, but he made the statement that he did not have his finger on the trigger when that firearm discharged. But during this trial, there have been firearms experts who have come to the trial. One by the name of Lucien Haig, who provided a very lengthy demonstration of the workings of a single-action Colt revolver like the one that was held by Baldwin, and talked about safety features that prevent a fully cocked hammer from striking and firing ammunition, now get this, unless the trigger is depressed. Now, an FBI expert testified in court as well that the revolver used by Baldwin was fully functional with those safety features when it arrived at an FBI laboratory. In fact, he tried to get the thing to fire in many ways, even had to strike it to get it to fire. Now, Haig, an Arizona-based consultant, expert in the Old West firearms, he testified that he saw no evidence that this gun was broken or modified before it was tested by the FBI. He was asked, have you seen any evidence that the full-cocked hammer or notch was filed or modified to allow faster shooting? And the answer by Haig, no. So, my friend, I believe that this is going to be a problem for our actor, Alec Baldwin. He says, in fact, they say here, said we proceeded with the testing because Mr. Baldwin had made the statement that he didn't pull the trigger. I think his exact statement was the gun just went off. That's what a detective for the Santa Fe County, Alexandra Hancock, said. So we needed to figure out how to disprove that theory or that statement, and that was the way it was proposed to us and what the FBI could do. So there is a problem for Alec Baldwin in the idea that he said he did not pull that trigger. Experts says that's just not true. That doesn't help Mr. Baldwin in this case. Now, there's a second thing that's of concern, and I mentioned that during the last episode, and that's the way that they were skirting around and trying to get this production actually produced as cheaply as possible. They cut corners in so many different ways. And so that is a problem. We mentioned that during the last episode. If you haven't heard that, go to charliecrimebuster.com. You can pick up that last episode. But now there's something else. It seems like that, according to testimonies, that when they were going over the gun safety issues and the gun safety training, I should say, and the instructions, well, Mr. Baldwin seemed to spend more time on the telephone, his cell phone, all during that safety training. As though, hey, I already know all about this. I don't need to listen. And there were several attempts, from what we can pick up, that she tried to get more gun safety taught on the set. But she was kind of pushed aside to hurry the production. And that's another thing. Hurry up the production. There has been testimony that has come forth in this trial that Baldwin was in a hurry. In fact, he shot one scene, he came right back, said, hurry, we're going to do it again. And so he was putting the stress, pushing to get this thing finished as quickly as possible. It's okay to be fast, but it's not okay to be fast and unsafe. And it appears that was what was happening on this set. So let me ask you, my friend, what do you think about this trial that's taking place right now? The armorer is in the crosshairs of the prosecutors. They're going after her for involuntary manslaughter ×2. It seems like they're pushing all the blame on this young 24-year-old lady who did not have much experience, who was put in this job and rushed to do her job. Did she make mistakes? Well, I don't think you... Man, if you watched this trial at all, you would have to conclude, yep, she made plenty of mistakes, and there's plenty of blame there for her. But should she go down alone? Should she be the only one that faces the consequences of what took place on that set? What say ye? What do you think about Alec Baldwin? Will he get out scot-free because he has expensive attorneys and he's an actor and he's a person of influence? Or will he go down too? Going to be really interesting, isn't it, to see what the jury says about this first trial, and then to see what happens during the second trial. Let me ask you another question. Do you think there will be a second trial? Do you think that Baldwin will go to trial, or do you think that they will settle with some deal? I would love to hear your opinion. You can reach me, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Let me know, number one, do you think that Baldwin is responsible too for this? Number two, do you think that Baldwin should face consequences? And if so, what should those consequences be? And number three, do you think that this girl is the scapegoat? She's the sacrificial lamb. They want it all to go away and pin it on her. And do you think that his influence and high, powerful, expensive attorneys can get him out of trouble? You reach me, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Till this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, be safe, be alert, yep, For the life you save, it may be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com. If you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.